Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Happy Sunday. Good gracious. Happy Sunday. Whew, it's the holiday season. We're getting there. Don't I look cozy in my plaid and my hat? Got Christmas and a fire back there. We're going to talk a little bit about finances today. I know it's a big thing for actors. It's kind of crazy, right? Actor finances. It's a tough one. So we're gonna dive right in. Lots of fun things to talk about today. And if anybody joins us and has questions, that's great. And if not, this video will be archived and everybody can check it out. Um, so the first thing I want to do is essentially give a disclaimer why anybody should listen to me about finances. Uh, I'm not a financial professional. I don't work in the financial services sector. I don't get paid by finance companies or anything like that. But I do have a degree in finance. I worked as a financial analyst for two different Fortune 500 companies, and I've made every single mistake possible as an actor with regard to money and money management and finances. So I get it. I really do. It makes me uniquely positioned and qualified to talk about it. So, uh, quick thing first, general housekeeping. Spreadsheets must be your friend as an actor. If you're not comfortable with spreadsheets, uh, get comfortable with them. And if you are comfortable with them, just get really good at how you organize your spreadsheets. So I'm sure a lot of you already have like an audition tracker or an audition log. That's awesome. But in addition to tracking all of your auditions and who it was from and what it was for and all that stuff, you need to track all your paychecks. The day you did the job, the day you should be receiving your paycheck, because that's going to be different for union or non-union projects. The day you received that paycheck, and if things were wrong on that paycheck, then you know what to do with it in terms of filing claims and things like that. So spreadsheets are really, really critical. I'm a nerd for spreadsheet. I use colors, I use formulas, I use bolds and highlights and tabs and underlines and all that sort of stuff. So spreadsheets are really important just for your audition tracking and your actor pay. My Meli Kalikimaka Christmas mug. The other reason that spreadsheets are really, really important is because you want to get comfortable with budgets and you want to track your expenses. It's not enough to just have a general idea of your expenses. You want to have a really dialed in idea of your expenses. And whether we're in acting or any other industry, that's going to help us. What we have is we have fixed costs and we have variable costs. Fixed costs are those things that do not change from month to month, like your rent, your car payment, your student loan. Then you have variable costs, which will change every month, like your grocery bill or your car gas bill or your going out to eat bill. Those things are going to change. But ultimately, what you want to do is you can look backwards over the last 6 to 12 months and create an average, both for your monthly spending fixed and your monthly spending variable, and you can create a tentative budget. And that will allow you to track forward the next 3 to 4 months, and then you can see if you need to ratchet up or ratchet down some of your expenses. There's a couple of areas where actors, and again, people in general, really lose money and they don't realize it. And one of the ways in which they're losing money is different automatic recurring billing, like subscriptions. Maybe you have a gym membership that comes out of your debit account monthly and you don't go to the gym. Why are you paying for that? Maybe you have 5 different streaming services because you thought it was a good idea to be able to watch every streaming show out there, but you only really watch 2 networks, 2 of those streaming networks. Probably a good idea to consolidate. One of the other things you can do is you can often get a discount or preferential pricing if you're paying for something up front for a whole year. If you pay for IMDb Pro for a year, you get a discount. You get a 30% discount. It's pretty good versus if you're just paying month to month. So that's something really important in your budgeting and your tracking. getting good with spreadsheets, looking for areas in which you can improve. Let's move on to savings. Hopefully, we're all in a position where our income covers all of our expenses every month and maybe even surpasses it a little bit. So maybe that means we've got a little bit extra every month that we can put into savings. Too often, actors especially, they're not used to stable income. And so when they do get a little bit of extra money in, they blow it. They'll pay a big bill, or they'll go have fun, or they'll buy that new phone that they want, or what have you, instead of creating sustainable savings and growth for themselves. And one of the best ways that you can do that is by creating an emergency fund of at least $1,000. Start small, obviously, and get to $1,000. It doesn't happen overnight. And what you do is you put that money into a high yield savings account. Don't put it in your checking account. Don't put it in your savings account. If you have just a regular bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, what have you, they're paying you a really crappy rate, APY. It's a really low rate of interest. The bank gets your money for free, and they get millions of people's money, and they make money off of our money. Heck no, I want to keep as much of my money as I can. And so you want to Google high yield savings account, HYSA. And what that's going to do is that's going to pay you 10 to 15 times more than your regular old checking account. Capital One has got one. Betterment has got one. American Express has got one. And they usually don't have minimums. They usually don't have fees. And if you've got $1,000 invested, it doesn't sound like a lot, but you then get $40 at the end of that year. $40 can pay for groceries. $40 can pay for a bill. $40 goes a long way. And as your money grows, so does the interest that you're getting paid. So a high yield savings account is great. Get to $1,000 before you start paying off debt, before you start investing in stocks and bonds and mutual funds and things like that and IRAs. Get your little emergency fund ready. It's not that hard. It takes time, but you have to start today. Speaking of time, time is your friend or time is your enemy. It doesn't matter if you're wealthy. It doesn't matter if you don't have any money. Your biggest factor in whether or not you are going to create a sustainable retirement for yourself, a comfortable retirement, is time. That's it. Time. If you've got 40 years, if you're 25 years old and you've got 40 years to retirement, you can retire comfortably with very reasonable savings behaviors and investing behaviors. That is the beauty of compound interest. If you don't know what compound interest is, Google it. It is your best friend in terms of making money. So we've talked about budgets, we've talked about spreadsheets, we've talked about high yield savings account. Let's talk about investing. So let's say you've got your debt paid off, and let's say you've got, actually let's time out 20 seconds before we get to investing. Let's talk about debt. The primary form of debt is credit card debt. Obviously, there's student loan debt, and that's a big thing in the United States. But credit card debt is the primary driver of most people's debt in the United States. And what you're doing is you're creating more debt on the debt. So if you have a credit card that's 24% interest or 30% interest, and you buy $1,000 iPhone, and you're just paying the minimum every month, it's going to take you years to pay that off. And you may end up paying hundreds or thousands of dollars in interest on the cost of that phone. Nobody needs that. The longer you can hang on to a phone, the more you depreciate it over time, the less it costs you to own that phone. And the same goes for a car. The longer you can own a car, the least it's actually going to pay you. Ultimately, you won't have a car payment, and then you can take all that money and pay off debt or invest it as well, which is pretty awesome. So if you do have credit card debt, which a lot of us do, there's a couple of different ways to pay it off. And there's a couple of different philosophies. And one is no better than the other, but it's called the snowball effect. And just to break it down, you can either pay off the card with the lowest balance first, or you can pay off the card with the highest APR, the highest interest rate first. So let's say you've got $5,000 in credit card debt. but one card has $500. Maybe you could pay that $500 first, and then you're checking off that, and that credit card no longer has debt. You're accomplishing things. When you're in debt and you have debt, tiny little positive behaviors can add up and create really good momentum. So you would pay off that $500 balance until it's $400, $300, $200, $100, $0. Great. Now we put that credit card over here. We don't use it anymore, but we hang on to it. We don't want to close it, because by closing credit cards, what happens is you can erase some of your credit history, which is one of the biggest factors in how you can get loans and approved for a car, or approved for renting an apartment, or approved for buying a home with a mortgage. So you want to keep your long-standing credit cards open, but you want to make sure that you're reducing the balance down to zero. So you could start with that low balance first, or you could look at your 4 or 5 credit cards and see which one has the highest APR, the highest interest rate. Probably 21, 24, 27% in interest, which means that $1,000 you have on there is going to grow and grow and grow for years if you're only paying the lowest amount. So you could start there and get that amount lower and lower and lower until that's zero, and then tackle the next one with the next highest APR. It's 2 different strategies. Start with the lowest balance first, or start with the highest APR first. It's whatever works for you, really. Different finance people say different things. There's no real right answer. And then when you get your debt paid off, you get your credit cards paid off, you can actually start creating positive momentum with that money, because you're now not spending it on that credit card. You're now not spending it on that credit card. So take that and build your retirement fund, your emergency fund in that high yield savings account. Great, you've already done that. Awesome. Now let's start creating retirement. And we create retirement through different forms of investment. You've probably heard of an IRA. Awesome. There's a Roth IRA, there's a traditional IRA, there's also what's called a SEP IRA for self-employed people, which is really important for actors. But the 2 primary forms of IRA that are really going to be available for actors are the Roth IRA and the traditional IRA. One is tax deferred, the other one is not. You can Google that and it will help you decide which one works for you. It's, do you pay taxes up front when you put the money in it and then you get money tax-free after, or do you put money in tax-free, which helps it build faster, and then you pay taxes on it when you withdraw the money at retirement? Quick disclaimer. When you're depositing money into an IRA, consider that money gone for the next 20, 30, 40 years. You do not want to touch that until the age of retirement, which is 59 and a half, 62, 65, depends on the IRA, depends on the fund. But if you take it out before that, there are prepayment or pre-withdrawal penalties. So you don't want to make your money worth less by paying a penalty. That's why you also have an emergency fund or cash on hand if you need it. When you get to that point where you're investing, and I know I'm throwing so much at you today, I kind of want to just do a little overview of all things money. When you start getting to a place where you're investing, something called asset allocation is really, really important. That's essentially the percentage of your money going into stocks versus the percentage going into bonds. And then with each category, stocks, are you going into low risk, medium risk, high risk, domestic stocks, international stocks, tech stocks, green stocks, all of those things. The younger you are, the more risk you can take on, because even if the market has a really bad year or two, you got a long time before retirement, so you can make up whatever losses you have. If you're really close to retirement within 5 years, perhaps you're going to take a more conservative, a more risk-averse approach. So for somebody in their 20s or even their 30s, you might want to consider what's called a 90-10 or 95-5 asset allocation. And what that means is 90% or 95% of your investments are going into stocks, and then 5% or 10% are going into bonds. Historically speaking, when stocks do well, bonds kind of hang out here. And if stocks do really poorly, then the bonds do pretty well. And so that balances out any losses that you might have in any given year. When you get closer to retirement, let's say your retirement age is 65 and you're 60, 61, that ratio may change considerably to where you only have 60% of your portfolio in stocks and you have up to maybe 40% of your portfolio in bonds. Because if you're 63 years old and the stock market crashes, you don't have time to really make that money back. But if you have it balanced out where a lot of your money at that point is in bonds as well, you're going to weather the storm and you'll minimize your losses prior to retirement. It's a lot of stuff there, right? A lot of stuff there. Okay, one of the other things I was going to talk about today, this was going to be a quick chat. One of the other things I was going to talk about was actor paperwork. And what I mean by that, that's not just the scripts that you print out, that's not the spreadsheets you keep, but that's your agency agreements or manager agreements, and it's your employment contracts when you book a job. So for agency agreements, I'm not going to talk about managers today because they're a separate entity, but all agencies should be SAG-AFTRA franchised or be approved by the ATA, Association of Talent Agencies. And if they are, they'll be listed on the SAG-AFTRA website. You don't want to work with an agency that isn't one of those franchises, unless that agency is so new, less than 18 months in business, that they have not yet been granted a franchise. Or the second instance is if they operate in a state that does not give franchises to talent agents. A third little point on that. If you are a SAG-AFTRA actor, you must sign with a franchised agent, either SAG-AFTRA franchise or ATA. You cannot sign with an agent that is not franchised. That's a little bit of fine print in SAG-AFTRA contracts there. Couple of things you want to be looking for in those agreements. What is the length of the agreement? What is the early termination or termination language in that agreement? And what is the commission structure? If they are charging anything above 10% commission for union work, for SAG-AFTRA work, regardless of whether that's film, TV, commercial, voiceover, whatever it is, if that agent is charging anything over a 10% commission, that's a red flag, and you should talk to the union. You can call the union and say, hey, this agency is listed as a franchised agency, but they're trying to charge me 15% on union work. If it's non-union work, they can charge you 15 or even up to 20%. For print work, it's pretty common that they're going to be charging 20%. Okay. The other real important part of actor paperwork is your employment contract. That's once you book a job, you get the audition, you send the tape in, casting loves you, they call your agent, hey, they want to book John Doe. Great, John Doe accepts the deal. When you show up to set on the first day, especially, and I'm talking about union work now, SAG-AFTRA work, there should be your work contract in your trailer the first day of work. And you want to read it. I know that sounds like common sense, but actors get so enthusiastic, so high on being on set, that they just blindly sign the contract and never really read it. And that's a problem, because if there's something wrong in the contract, you're going to have to fight harder to get what you deserve in terms of payment or different perks or things like that, because you signed it. Instead, take 10 minutes and read the contract slowly. And there's a few things that you want to look at. For film and TV, you want to look at your role. You want to look at your work date or dates. You want to look at your rate, and you want to look at your billing. All of those things are going to be listed on the first or second page of that contract. And then at the back of that contract, there may be some other things such as the perks. What kind of trailer are you going to have? What kind of travel or transportation are you going to have, if that's relevant? What kind of overscale payment? That would be listed in what you're getting paid. Okay, so all of those things are really, really important. And if there's anything wrong or off, do not sign it. Talk to your agent. Yes, even if you have a 6 a.m. call time and you're in your trailer at 6:04 a.m. and something doesn't look right, every single actor should have a 24-hour emergency number to contact their agency to then say, hey, this contract doesn't look right. What do I do? Send me a picture of it. You'll send your agent a picture. The agent will call casting. Yes, even at 6 a.m. and they will get it worked out. That's what your reps are for, to put out those fires. Put out those fires. There you go. And you can have them do that for you. SAG-AFTRA says that you're supposed to have enough time before you start work, before you go to hair and makeup, to sit down and read your contracts. Okay? Doesn't always work out that way, and don't be a jerk about it, but you can go to hair and makeup if they call you and say, "Great, yeah, I'm no problem. I can go to hair. I can go to makeup. I just need a few minutes to be able to read my contract before we go to rehearsal or we go to set, if that's okay." And people know how sets work. You're not the first actor to ask that question. So those are two really important pieces of paperwork: the actor employment contract that we just talked about, and then the actor agency agreement. Why the actor employment contract is really important? Let's say everything's fine and you sign it and you go do your work and then you go home. Well, you should be getting paid 2 weeks later, no more than 2 weeks later for a union job. And let's say you get your check and it's not right. Well, if you didn't take a photo of every page of your contract, how do you know it's not right? If you didn't take a photo of your Exhibit G, the Exhibit G is the document that you sign at the end of your workday. It says, what time did you get there? What time were lunch breaks? Were there any meal penalties? Were there any other kind of penalties or payments? What time did you leave? All of those things. Maybe they signed you out. You signed out at 2 a.m., but you only got paid up until 1 a.m. So they're shortchanging you an hour. That is money that you earned. That is money that you deserve. And then you'll have to file a claim with SAG-AFTRA. Even if you are not a member of SAG-AFTRA yet, if you worked on a SAG-AFTRA project, you are protected and covered by SAG-AFTRA. You can file a claim with them if your paycheck is wrong. The only exception to that is if you are a non-union background performer. I'm only talking about principal employment contracts here. Okay. Kind of coming to the end of things here, but just a couple of quick reviews. Remember, time is your friend. The sooner you can start saving, creating your emergency fund, the better. Use a high yield savings account. The sooner you can start investing even small amounts, even $50 a month, will make a massive change, because compound interest takes time. And the more time you have, the better position you will be when you get closer to retirement. And I know if you're listening and you're 22 years old or you're 25 years old, you're like, I got plenty of time for retirement. And you do. You got another 40 years. But you don't have time to let that money really start to build. The difference between starting investing at 25 and starting investing at 35 is hundreds of thousands of dollars in retirement that you will lose or not have the opportunity to earn, because compound interest won't have enough time. It'll only have 30 years, not 40 years, right? So you could be sitting pretty in retirement if you just start saving $50 a month at the age of 25 or 21 or 20, whatever it is. Please learn from my mistakes. Learn from my mistakes. Two other things I want to give to you, I want to offer to you today as we close out here. Number one, we talked about credit cards. And if you have great credit, if you manage your debt well, if you pay off your credit cards every month, I'm serious, if you pay them off every month, you can use credit cards to your advantage. You've probably heard of travel hacking, right? And if you travel, if you understand what travel hacking is, you don't have to pay for flights, hotels, rental cars, things like that. I am going to be booking first class travel to Europe next year for 2 weeks to go visit 4 countries, and I'm going to pay $0 for my flights. First class. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to be taking 8 total flights, and I'm going to be paying $0 except taxes and fees. I will be using points exclusively on that. And if you are somebody who has a great handle over your finances and great handle over your credit cards, and you want to get on board with travel hacking, DM me travel hacking. DM me travel hacking, and I will send you my 2 credit cards that I use that are awesome for travel hacking. It's no secret here. It's the Capital One Venture X and the Chase Sapphire Preferred, but I will send you referral links that cut through a lot of the noise so you can apply for those cards. And then the last thing is the first 7 people. I don't care who it is. The first 7 people who sign up for my Actor Finances course, go to www.actorfinances.com. The first 7 people who sign up for that using the code AF, Actor Finances, AF AF50 HWC, Hollywood Winner Circle, AF50 HWC, you'll get $50 off the course. Actually, anybody can use that code and get $50 off the course. But the first 7 people who do that and then DM me, hey, I signed up for Actor Finances, I will also give you free enrollment into the webinar that I will be doing with a tax professional from Brass Taxes. Brass Taxes is the go-to tax professional for freelancers, including actors. The guy who started it, an actor. The accountants that work for that company, actors and artists and freelancers. They know what we go through. They understand the tax nuances. They understand W-2s versus 1099s. They understand what's deductible and what you can expense and what you can't. They know all of that stuff. So 90 minutes on February 7th, we'll be doing a 90-minute chat, 60-minute chat, and 30-minute Q&A. You can get your tax questions answered. That's $300. It normally would cost you guys $49, but the first 7 people who email me, direct message me rather, and say, hey, I signed up for Actor Finances, you're going to get that webinar for free as well. So a couple of different ways to get free stuff. I love free stuff. It's the holidays. We all love free stuff. And again, just to summarize, I've been where you might be today. I've been stressed about money. It is not funny. No one ever teaches us about money growing up. Whether you grew up with money or you didn't grow up with money, there is trauma surrounding money for all of us. It's scary to ask questions. It's scary to feel like a beginner or not know anything. That's okay. I have a degree in finance. I worked for 2 different Fortune 500 companies handling other people's money, and I still ended up $30,000 in credit card debt when I lived in Los Angeles as an actor. $30,000, man. I learned. I altered my behavior. I modified what I did. I paid off all $30,000. I created my high yield savings account emergency fund. I started paying down my debt, like I said. I'm in a place now where I own a home. I have an emergency fund for a year's worth of an emergency fund. I have my IRAs, 3 different IRAs are fully funded every year. And I have investments in retirement. It was not an overnight thing, gang. It took me 10 years to get those wheels in motion. It took 10 years to go from $30,000 in credit card debt to in a comfortable financial situation. What we do as actors is not comfortable. It is not natural, it is not normal, and it's not easy. And I applaud each and every one of you for pursuing your passions. There is a better way to do it. I don't buy into the bullcrap of starving artists. I don't buy into the idea that we need to be broke and suffering for our art. Not anymore. There are too many ways to learn, get educated, and improve our behavior and change our situation. And with that, I wish you really happy holidays. If you have questions, pop them in the chat, pop them in the comments. I'll come back to them. I'll answer questions. Please tag me. Thanks so much.